All right. Well, now that Yelva and Isaac are here, we can get started. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I think that we might have a couple of new people here. So we're happy to have you joining in. Okay, great. Um, and uh, Elizabeth just chatted us about the very first thing I was going to share, that this is a virtual potluck. We usually have breaking bread over food. I did not set a good example today. All I have is the cold remnants of my tea from this morning, but I'm going to keep drinking it. But if you brought your lunch, please feel free to enjoy it. Elizabeth says she's having a crunchy salad, so enjoy that. All right, so also I just want to let you know that we are recording this session so that we can share it with people who weren't able to make it today. And we hope that that won't inhibit any conversation, because what we want to do is to generate a good flow of ideas and solutions. So hopefully that won't be an issue. And I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about Breaking Bread. We've been doing Breaking Bread for about 3 years in various formats. We have had gatherings with our staff members, with our program participants and community members. And this session is one that we hold once a month on the third Wednesday. And it's an opportunity for people who have participated in Breaking Bread in another way to have a place to continue the conversation on a regular basis. This is our 4th Zoom gathering. And so I guess one good thing that has come out of COVID is that we're finding new ways to connect with each other, and more folks can join who might not have been able to make it over to one of our locations to attend previously. So this is our 4th time joining together by Zoom, and we appreciate you being here. We break bread together when we have these conversations because we understand the power of food in each of our lives and the power of food to bring us together across lines of difference. We start with this idea that solutions begin with conversations. And so through the conversations that we have, we are seeking new strategies to end food insecurity in our community. And those strategies we are looking at to go beyond the important food assistance that we provide through manna on a daily basis. We know that that food assistance is important in this moment, but we also know that it isn't the whole solution for change in the future. So through these conversations, we ask what we can do as individuals or in small groups to address the root causes of food insecurity. So we've got a really interesting topic today that I'm excited about, but before we get into all of the serious information, we like to start by introducing ourselves so that we get to know who we're sharing the space with. And we do that with a little process called New and Good. And so I just want to invite each person to take a moment to introduce yourself and share something that is both new and good in your life at this time. Just a brief sharing. And I'm going to start, and then I think I hate to call on people. It's the most orderly way. Let's try it without calling on people, and we'll have people remember to unmute yourself and then just introduce yourself and let us know what's new and good. So I'm Angie Whitmall. I am MANA's Senior Director of Participant Support. And I mentioned already that I was in Chicago recently, and my mom and I were watching a documentary on PBS called Driving While Black. And while we were watching, we just happened to see some faces go across the screen that we recognized. And so first we saw a wedding shot of some family friends. And we knew that a few years ago, another family friend had submitted some home movies to a Chicago African American Archives project. And that footage came from her donation. And then a little while later in the show, we saw another face that we know really well. It was my father. And there was a shot of my father on my parents' wedding day, surrounded by a couple of my mother's bridesmaids. So that was really an exciting moment for us, and exciting that we got to share it together. And so that, I guess that's both old and new and good. Old family footage, but that was exciting. So I'll just invite anybody else who would like to go next to unmute, share your name, and tell us what's new and good.
Hi everyone, my name is Wynn. I am the mobile kitchen coordinator at Mana. I recently fixed my bike and have been going on a lot of really nice fall bike rides. So that's been good to do before it gets too dark after work, but I've been really enjoying that.
Sounds great. Thank you, Wynn.
I'm Beth, and I just decided to let you see who I am in a break from my salad to tell you that the good thing that I just discovered is I finally figured out how to crack the process for getting in to see the African American History Museum, which has been closed for some time and is now open again, but it's not entirely easy to navigate their process to get tickets. So if you have given up on that, know that there is a way, and you can even text me if you, or you can put something in the chat if you're not sure how, but it makes it a little complicated, but I am extremely happy to finally have cracked that and expect to be going in actually, yeah, about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Enjoy. So, and remember to ask Beth for more details if you need the secret code yourself. Hi, Andrea. We're doing new and good.
Hi, I'm Mary Bennett. I'm on the MANA Advocacy Task Force. And the new and good for us is yesterday, my niece, who is also my godchild, just had her first baby, and we've been trading pictures all over the place, the whole family, you know, it's just really exciting. So that's my new and different and wonderful thing.
Congratulations, that's great.
Hi, I'm Yelba Mojica, and I am Participant Services in Manor Food Center. And my house smells wonderful right now. My son's birthday is today, and he has the type of job, he's a sous chef. So he, for Thanksgiving, is always like, are we going to see him or we're going to not, or see him late? And so there have been times when he does come, but it's late, or either he doesn't make it. But not only with being his birthday, but with the fact that who knows what Thanksgiving is going to bring this year, he requested one of the foods that we cook for Thanksgiving. And typically, my husband is from Cuba, so he makes a pork roast, and he makes it Cuban style, which is, it smells amazing. It takes a lot of preparation, and he requested that just in case Thanksgiving goes weird, I should say, different. And also because it's his birthday. So my husband put it in at 7 in the morning. It's been cooking since, very slowly. And so it's different and new, and it's good because it's gonna be good. And so in the afternoon, he'll get here and we'll finish cooking. And so it'll be sort of a double celebration, perhaps, again, with the uncertainty of Thanksgiving and how we're going to meet this year. At least he's going to enjoy that part of it that he might miss or might have missed in the past. So that's my new and good. I'm excited that he has another year, and then I get to see him this afternoon.
Well, that's great. And tell him happy birthday from all of us at Breaking Bread.
Thank you.
I'm Ethel Gilbert, and I'm involved with the Social Justice Committee at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Rockville, and we've been active supporters of MANA. And I guess I'd just like to share, I'm really enjoying the peak fall colors, as well as all the goofy Halloween decorations in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ethel.
Yeah.
It is fun to see both of those.
I'm Robin Ritterhoff, and I'm mostly just give to MANA. In my usual role in usual years as co-lead of the 27 vegetable growing beds at Montgomery County's largest demonstration garden, we give lots and lots of vegetables. This year, we weren't allowed to work in the garden until the beginning of September, at which point we went in, and because we improved the soil so dramatically, it looked like Jurassic Park. Yesterday, we finished clearing these enormous weeds out of the 27th of the 27 vegetable beds and put black plastic down very firmly, which we hope will solarize the sun, kill the future weeds. And so we hope to be back to growing vegetables and donating them to MANA, which is our great joy, next year. Good Lord willing.
That's great, Robin. Thank you. And I know a few people just joined. If you're unfamiliar with how we start out, we're doing new and good, and just taking a moment to introduce ourselves and share something that is new and good in our lives. So feel free, anybody, to jump in.
I'll jump in. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mardia. I work on staff here at MANA, and I'm a huge fan of Tracy. So I wanted to make sure I was here to support. But I guess my new and good is really not new, because I've had, as you can see, I'm in my backyard, and I've taken to now taking meetings out here, because it's a lot quieter and the weather is nice, except you probably hear the crickets. So I guess that's my new and good. I have this new cricket that that's how people know that I'm online, when they hear my cricket in the backyard. But I'm so pleased to be here and just enjoying the beautiful weather and this wonderful day, and looking forward to learning and sharing.
Thanks, Mardia.
Casey Caseman, Interfaith Community Liaison, a long-term fan of Jackie and MANA and the whole team. What's new and good? The fall season. I'm just loving it.
Well, thank you so much. You reminded me to share that Jackie's not actually with us today. Her assistant, Rosali, is in her spot helping us run the meeting. So that's why you're not hearing from Jackie.
I'm Andrea Kempnerwink. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Cool. I'm Andrea Kempnerwink with Community Reach of Montgomery County. We partner with MANA Food Center they help us with groceries for many of our clients, and we get them to our clients. And I've been a fan of MANA Food for many years. My new is that my daughter moved from New York to Philadelphia, which means that she's closer. And my good is that after about 10 months without cleaning services, which I decided I was going to do once a month for my house, they are here again. So I'm all excited, but it also means that I have to jump off at some point to let them use this room. But I'm excited today.
Great, it's good to see you.
You too.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Sol Zimmerman. I am a Director of Administration for MANA Food Center. My new and good is I got new wheels for my motorcycle. So I'm a motorcyclist and BMW enthusiast. So fall is the perfect time to get out and just feel a little bit of wind in the hair and just be able to decompress a little bit. So great weather equals a little bit of playtime for me. So happy about that. That's my new and good.
So watch out on the road for snow.
We have to see you with all your gear on, so.
But I can send you some pictures. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Enjoy.
Thank you.
My name is Priya Narang. I'm the school-based programs manager at Mana Food Center. I just wanted to share something a little similar to Yelba's New and Good, which is that this Friday is my mom's birthday. So just trying to figure out some plans with everything going on, how to make it fun and memorable. And it's on a Friday, so that's convenient, where she's taken the day off and even more pressure to do all the things. But I'm working on some type of baked good with dark chocolate, coconut, and nuts, either walnuts, pecans, or both. So if anybody has any recipes for a good cake, cupcake, brownie, something, you can feel free to send it my way. But I'm just working on that and just trying to be creative and celebrating. Thanks.
Well, Priya, I vote for pecans, and I also suggest that you do a test run and bring it by the office tomorrow so we can check it out. And give you
Great idea,
feedback.
Angie.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yelba too, we can taste on the back end.
Oh, sure. Happy birthday to your mom, Priya.
And thank you as well to your son.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a few more minutes and we can make space for a few more folks to share who haven't shared already.
Sure, I can go if nobody minds. So I'm Alex Claroux. I'm program assistant for the Montgomery County Food Council. And a new or fun thing going on is not this weekend, but the past weekend, I believe, I saw my 8-month-old twin cousins who came from New York, and we were able to social distance and see them, and they're getting to the point where they're rolling around. They haven't been able to walk quite yet, but they're every time I see them, which hasn't been very often because of COVID, they keep changing rapidly. So it's been really fun to get pictures and FaceTime with them and see them in person. So it's been fun to watch them grow up.
Seems like it would be hard to social distance from them because you'd be wanting to pick them up.
Exactly. It's really hard. I'm like, no, I want to touch you, but I can't.
Hi, my name is Isaac. I am a call center assistant. I help Yelba out in the call center. My new and good, I bought some Snap stock today, and I've made $20 so far. So, yes.
Well, stop watching it so much.
So just checking.
Oh gosh. Thanks, Isaac. All right. Well, we don't want to put you on the spot. We have a couple more people who haven't shared anything, so I'll just give a couple seconds and see if either of you would like to share.
I'll go. My name is Carrie Schumacher. I am a dietetic intern for the University of Maryland. So right now I'm rotating at Mana for the next week or two, I believe. And my preceptor is Jenna Umriak. So we're just here today. My other, my roommate, my other dietetic intern is on the call too. Her name is Jennifer Rivera. And my new and good is I am from the South Jersey area and I just moved to DC. So that is very new for me. And I just like kind of, you know, seeing everything that the city has to offer. It's a big change from home. So.
Carrie.
Welcome.
All right. Great. Well, thanks everybody. Glad that we had enough time today to just share all of that, and it just helps for the discussion to know who we're sharing the room with. So today, as Mardia mentioned earlier, our speaker is Tracy Schwinger, and she is a retired NCPS school teacher and is a current MANA volunteer in our call center. She works with Yelba and Isaac. Anybody else? No, I think that's it from the call center. She also works with our advocacy task force and is involved in our efforts, our Get Out the Vote efforts. And so Tracy was kind enough to agree to share with us about the lessons that we can learn from the suffragist movement as we work on getting out the vote in the current election. Tracy also worked with us in the 2016 election to encourage voter registration. So, gosh, Tracy, so much time has gone by.
I know.
So I'll just turn it over to Tracy, who is going to share with us and lead our discussion.
Well, welcome. It's good to see everybody. I will start by saying that I have gotten so much out of the breaking bread conversation. And one of the things that I have from the very first meeting that I happened to attend was on housing. And the presentation and the activity that we did really showed some of the inequities and you know, some of the laws that really I wasn't even aware existed. And so when I approached this topic, I was looking at it from what don't we know? You know, I'm sure we learned it in school, but if it isn't applying to your everyday, you probably forgot it. Or if it doesn't have a specific interest, you've probably forgotten it. So I did a lot of reading as I was going, preparing for this, to see what was it that I had forgotten and what is it that is still pertinent today. And there were some interesting correlations as I was reading through some material. I was looking at things that are going on in the Black Lives Matter movement, things that are going on television that are very uncomfortable, and looking at what the strategies that were used during the suffrage movement and things that are going on today. And there's really quite a bit of correlation. And so I'm going to start out with a little history so that we're all kind of, you know, on the same page in that regard, but open it up to discussions throughout this presentation to look at, you know, where we are today and how we move forward, whether it is, you know, as a Montgomery County and the participants of MANA, or even a larger spectrum of the country. So as we're moving through, you know, think about those kinds of things, and we'll have discussion throughout. So I thought I'd start out. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully. There we go. All right. So I'm going to share the screen, and feel free to jump in. But I thought we would start with a little bit of history, the amendments 14th, 15th, and 19th. And I need to move my screen here so that I can see what I'm talking about. There we go. All right. With a focus on the suffrage movement and interesting connections there, and why the movement was successful, what worked back then, and how it's comparing to today, the current approaches to Black Lives Matter and other social change movements, and then the barriers that we have either here in Montgomery County for MANA participants, and as I said, more globally. So I thought I'd start with the 19th Amendment. The landmark ramifications and adoption of the 19th Amendment, it stated that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Now, the suffrage movement comprised of many different splintered groups. Two, for example, was the National Union of Women's Suffrage Society, and their campaign was really looking at constitutional means. They were looking at really how to approach the law. But there was a group of people, a group of women, the Women's Social and Political Union, and they wanted a more militant approach and tended to break laws to highlight their causes. And we see some of that today in the Black Lives Matter movement. The political approach focused on state legislatures granting women the right to vote. Again, there was a splinter of groups. One group wanted to go with a federal approach, and the other group wanted to go with a state legislature approach. They pursued court cases to test for the 14th Amendment. That brought me back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her approach to change, and pushed for a national constitutional amendment to grant them the right to vote, to grant women the right to vote. Oops. So when you look at the movement, that what seemed to work was pressuring the president, Congress, the social legislature, but also having those other organizations, splinter groups and trade unions, attacking from various directions. The suffrage movement addressed women and changed the way they saw themselves. And I'm going to come back to that one. And the other thing that I noticed in the readings that I did was their PR. They met with women where they were, and they created activities that they could attend, parades, social gatherings that work to educate and support the cause. So looking at the suffrage movement and addressing women and changing the way they saw themselves, as women who didn't have a right to vote, they were stay-at-home moms. Their job was to take care of the children, make sure there was food on the table, everybody had clothes, that sort of thing. But what the suffrage movement did was take those concerns and get women to look at it differently. They addressed their concerns in the schools first. Your children are going to school. You should have a right to vote for what's going on in those schools. You should be able to take care of your children through a vote. And that's what started to change how women were thinking about whether or not they needed the right to vote, or whether or not they should even have the right to vote. And by empowering women and helping them to see that that vote was going to allow them to do the job that they felt they should be doing, or that their families felt they should be doing, it changed the perspective of whether or not women should just have the right to vote. The other thing that came up as I was reading was looking at women who were at home, stay-at-home mom, working to, clean clothes, food, that sort of thing. But by making the activities that were available, things like parades and social gathering, they could bring their families, they could bring their children. And while they were there, they also received, an education, more about the cause, more information. And by meeting women sort of in their domain, they were able to pull more women into wanting that right to vote, or listening to the cause. So looking at it from that perspective, I wonder what you think about what we either do or don't do today that could meet people where they are and bring them into either voting or changing the rules that we have today, for example, in the Black Lives Matter movement. Any thoughts on that?
Tracy, I think that this is Mardia. This is really interesting. I'm glad to hear about this. And as it relates to today, what I'm thinking about is how social media and especially because of COVID and we don't really have the opportunity to create these larger activities. Yes, we can still do some parades, but a limit on the social gatherings.
Right.
But with social media and just thinking back to this past July or June, I think it was early summer, and you mentioned the Black Lives Matter, and I thought about the awareness activity that was created around this campaign called My Black Receipt. And My Black Receipt is basically a campaign that I don't know if it was started by the Black Lives Movement. I don't think they're related necessarily, but basically this campaign is to alert the community and the nation to the fact that there are Black-owned businesses in your community that should be supported and can be supported.
Right.
And I think that in order to raise a significant amount of money, and that education and community synergy that's created around there, it sort of reminds me of this sort of movement that pressures maybe not the Congress and state legislators, but pressures us as individuals to move and act in a way that's positive.
I think that's a great example. And as you're saying that, when I first started this, I had thought about that. And then as I was moving through, I'd forgotten about that, but that's a perfect example of how we're using some of those same strategies and really, it's not casual, but it comes across as a casual way of bringing others into that thinking. It just, it should support Black businesses, Black-owned businesses, absolutely. But it's just kind of been, kind of glossed over. But now it's like sort of in your face, but in a very casual, non-confrontational way. So moving on, there were several different organizations that really were fighting for the women's right to vote. Some of them were more aggressive than others. This is the National Women's Party, and they really went for more of an aggressive and lobbying, I'm sorry, let me stop and start that again. They were going more aggressively towards lobbying and more political stunts and disobedience, and really more of an in-your-face kind of tactic. This is a quote from, and at the end of this presentation, if anybody's interested in reading, there are several articles, but this is from 100 Years of the 19th Amendment and the Fight for Women's Suffrage Continues. So this was one group, but it also points out that really it wasn't creating something new. They used I thought it was interesting that they used the British suffrage campaign, the American labor movement, anti-slavery, earlier women's rights campaigns that had failed, but using those same tactics again. And, we have talked about that before, using those, looking at what's around us, what other countries have done, what others communities have done to change the things in either in the Black Lives Matter movement or in erasing poverty and in getting food to the people who need it. So this was an example, I'll leave that up there for a couple of minutes, but this was an example of one of the posters that was used, 12 Reasons Why Women Should Vote. And again, it is looking at how it affects them in their daily lives. I would say at least half of those. And so again, even for those who would quickly say or assume that they are not interested in politics, for example, they're addressing the issues that hit them closer to home. I'm just giving you a couple minutes to read over some of those.
I find it interesting, Tracy. I just wanted to add number 12 there to sum up, because to sum up all the reasons in one, it's for the common good of all. That seems so simple, but that's never been a reason why we do anything, unfortunately. I think if you think about the issues that we have to vote about today, a few of them are, or many of them, I think, even venture to say, are for the common good of all. But while we hear that and know that we're supposed to do that, we don't. And it's probably why we're having these kinds of conversations, right?
We can't even get everybody to wear a mask for the common good for all. Sadly.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, Tracy. But...
Sorry. Put it right out there. Yeah, but you're right. It actually is interesting. And there was a video that I saw that doesn't quite fit into this, but I can send it out. It is saying just that really, by addressing some of the root causes of poverty and the root causes of some of our other social issues, it really is for the common good of all. And I think that that's easily pushed aside. Very good point. So this was, again, one of those more militant groups, but I also think that it's true that we, deeds, not words, is about the point that nothing will change if we just talk. And I think in looking at, for example, some of the Black Lives Matter movement, things that are going on during the Black Lives Matter movement, not necessarily the same group, a fringe group or whatever, is pushing, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later, but pushing people beyond just talking. And one of the things that I hope we can talk about a little later in this is how we see that playing into the solution, negatively or positively. So while lobbying and petitioning were the norm, this group also included those parades and pageants and street speaking and demonstrations, but they also recognized that they needed to take that to the next level through picketing and the civil disobedience. So a movement in 1920 versus a movement in 2020. What can we learn from those? And in looking at the suffrage unit movement, what can we use in our efforts either to end poverty or getting our participants to vote? And that's one where I open it up to conversation. And look at where we are as we look at those root causes in breaking bread. How does what the suffrage movement, how the process that they went through, how do we see ourselves today going through those same things? What's working and what isn't? What could we do differently?
This is Mary Bennett. The one thing that I took immediately from this is how long it took them to get there. I mean, they kept going. I mean, it started, in the 1850s, and they just kept going regardless of how long it took, because it was that important. And it's the same thing today on a number of other issues that it seems like, why haven't we gotten there yet? It's been so long since we started with the civil rights, with poverty, but we can't stop. We have to keep moving. We have to keep moving forward. And that's sort of, they did get there, but it took a long time, and we can't stop. That's what I got from it. Yeah.
This is Andrea. Very good point. This is Andrea Kempnerwink, and I agree with what Mary just said, but also as Marty was talking about the common good, I think that's something that we don't stress enough, that there's not enough argument about why this needs to be supported by everyone, that it costs the community.
Mhm.
And that's how you get more people on your side and it to be a more part of the main conversation instead of the idea that people can address it more as a fringe group.
This is Angie. I think so many people get the message that they don't matter, their life doesn't matter, their view doesn't matter, their needs don't matter. And so it's hard for them to see that it's important for them to participate in this process and vote. And we've seen in the past how, people felt like, oh, their one vote didn't matter. And so I think that it's important to keep talking to people who might not be the usual voters and to drive the point home about how important it is for them to vote and participate.
I agree with that. One of the things as I was reading, I'm sorry, Robin, one of the things that I was reading was looking at the fact that people really who, for example, haven't voted, really are feeling that their vote doesn't count or that nobody's noticed. And I think that you're right. I think it's important to notice. I think it's important to bring those people in and show them the value or share the value. And those simple connections actually carry a lot of weight.
I was going to mention, I have no idea what the rules are in Maryland or Montgomery County about people who have been incarcerated voting. It's kind of shameful because I do spend a great deal of my time phone banking with Pennsylvanians that I don't really know what the situation is in our own state and community. But that seems to be a way that, because of the unequal system of incarcerating people, particularly in Maryland, where we lead the country in young Black men who are incarcerated proportionally to the broader population. I'm wondering what kind of a bar this is to MANA clients voting. I simply don't know.
Well, I can tell you because I work with the Board of Election on that, on getting people to vote. And as Angie indicated, I was outside MANA the last election. And if you are serving time right now, you cannot vote. Or if you have bought or sold votes, you may not vote. And other than that, you are free to vote. But that law changed in, I think it was 2013 or 15. So there are many people who don't realize they actually can vote. It used to be if you committed a felony, you were not allowed to vote. But those laws have changed, and I think education is a big part of getting people to recognize that they actually can vote.
That's good to know, Tracy. I really didn't know exactly what the law was on that, so it's helpful to have that. I, in the past, have talked to some folks that I've encountered through MANA and, asked them if they were planning to vote. And I've had people say to me, no, I'm not able to vote. And so I do think that perhaps we need to, work on making sure that people know that maybe they can vote actually. So that's good to know.
When I sat outside and talked with voters coming in a few years ago, the three areas that came up was a criminal record, having moved, and they really just hadn't taken the time to re-register in their newer location. Again, you can still vote. It would be provisional, but you can still vote. And the other is the thing that always crosses my mind is as a teacher, I would often teach at least second generation students who were ESOL students. And when their families came for meetings, we had an interpreter. And they felt that they couldn't vote either because of their English, but interpreters are provided. And again, it becomes an education. It becomes an issue of educating people so that they know what their rights are.
Tracy, I'd just like to echo that because I think my thoughts as you were saying that are so in line at the moment because, and I guess just a little bit of background about me. My family immigrated to this country in 1990 and subsequently I became a citizen and then was granted the right to vote. And the education that came along with understanding what it means and that responsibility, I've taken so seriously because I feel like all the elections, I participate in every single one. Not just the, the national ones that we hear so much information about. It's so important because everything that I vote on, all of those issues are issues that are affecting me right here in my own neighborhood here in Germantown. And I think that maybe if and I know that's what our advocacy task force, is set up to do, is to educate folks on the issues that happen today and tomorrow that we're voting on the regular local elections. That helps to build up the momentum to encourage folks to continue to vote. And when nationals come along, then it's not just, oh, once every 4 years you vote, because I think that's where people feel disenfranchised when you vote only once every 4 years and the person you voted for probably didn't win. So then you feel like your vote didn't count. But there's so many other things that you could have been voting for to see that success. I think, if we're thinking about Germantown or right here in Montgomery County and our 9-district question, I mean, that's something that will really impact all of our lives within the next few days, if, whether we vote on it or not. So I think our education needs to go back to basic if we want to encourage people to understand the value behind this right.
I think that's a very good point. I think when I was younger, I really thought about, as you say, the big election. And now I see those judges really matter. Those people, those other people you're voting for along the way really make a difference as much, if not more, in your personal life, in your community. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
The organization I'm volunteering with this year for the election has focused on working with people in swing states to elect people at the state level, like state senators and state delegates, for 2 reasons. First of all, because sadly, our US Congress doesn't seem to accomplish much these days, and the states accomplish much more. And secondly, because there is research that if a person gets excited about voting for their county councilman or their state delegate and shows up to vote for that person, they will continue to vote up the ballot. Right. Whereas if they're only showing up to vote for the person at the top of the ballot, they will not necessarily bother with those lower levels that affect our lives conceivably more. So I think that what Marty was saying and what others have been saying is quite right. Getting involved at the local level, not just every 4 years, is major. And if you look at what happened in Virginia, because its state legislature switched from Republican to Democrat over the past couple of years, it's kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to add, and I thought of this when Angie was speaking a little earlier about, some of the participants we might have who just may not feel like their voice is heard. And something that I've heard from at least 1 or 2 people that I know personally is that they just don't really agree with the system of how we vote. And so, you can see that with our last election with, even though, the number of votes was higher, we had a different result. and with the electoral college system of voting. So I know that's one thing. And I know in some states, particularly Massachusetts, there was a ballot question about the ranked choice system. And, I think that things like that are helpful and, would be really great if other states got to vote on that too. So people, weren't necessarily wasting a vote or, things like that. I hate to use that term, but something where you have that ranked choice and could say, okay, this is my top person, but if not this, then somebody else, but I'm not sure how relevant that is to our participants, but just thought that's something I wanted to bring up because I have heard that personally as why, as being a barrier to why some people don't vote.
Well, and to that end too, I think in part, educating people on those new kinds of things that are coming up, keeping that information clear so that people aren't overwhelmed or lost in the politics, that they understand what the choices are and how it's going to apply to them.
This is Andrea again. I think, the idea of getting them to vote down ballot also gives people a better feeling that they actually can make a difference. When you're not one of 50 million, I have no idea how many people are in the country or in the state, but you're one of 1 million in Montgomery County. That's a big difference. And when we're a group of more, there are probably more people who have similar views, possibly, in your local area, then your view is stronger. Or even if you're one of the few that have a different view, then being able to tell people your view has more strength than when you're just one member of the country. You also don't have to worry about the electoral college when you're talking about down ballot items.
So how do we get people to look at further down the ballot? How do we get people, our participants, or really anyone in the community? How do we address that? If we're looking at things that the suffragists did, in many ways we do some of those things from the political perspective. How do we get those people who are making that choice not to vote, or making that choice to really only focus on the big election or the top of the ballot, to change that thinking?
This is Mary Bennett. I think one of the ways that you can do that is to talk to them about what is something in your neighborhood or your town or that is concerning to you that you would like to have something change, and then invite them to a town hall to talk about, to ask questions of the county council members or the county executive. Get them involved in some way, in a way that it would change something in their life that was important to them.
In my research for this, I was looking at different organizations, and one organization, I think it was in Chicago, had a party with DJs and everything, but you couldn't get in unless you showed your registration card to say that you had already registered to vote. There was another one, I'm trying to think of what it was, but really just to get people in the door, to start listening, to move in the direction of having those conversations. I thought that was interesting.
This is Andrea again. I think also, having people in the community talk about those down ballot issues. So their faith community, the leaders of the faith community, the leaders of the schools, the leaders of, anybody who touches their lives and who people feel an attachment to and respect, but are in their own community. Then I think that being able to discuss those issues, not only go out and vote, but, this is an issue before us. Here are, both sides of the coin, not necessarily telling them how to vote, but possibly telling them what they believe, but at least, sharing that it's important to those leaders.
I would add also that I think it's important to note that in the suffragist movement, there was a lot of racism. So it's not as if all women were on the same playing field. So I think that, looking at that in the past and moving forward, it's important to elevate all voices and know when to step back, particularly as a white woman. That's something that I consider. So I think that's can be a little bit abstract, but I think it's important to consider as we move forward, knowing when to step back, knowing when to elevate certain voices, and accept that just because you're not affected by a certain topic doesn't mean it doesn't have a large impact on other people's lives.
Well, and she wasn't a plant, but that brings us to the next part of this presentation. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So as we move forward, looking more at the organizations and how they work together. This was also a poster that was obviously from back then. Voted for women with means the vote for Black women. And just to give you a little more history so that this makes a little more sense, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1968, and it granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, and guaranteed all citizens equal protection under the law. The 15th Amendment was ratified in 1870, and it stated that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So African American women knew that the 14th and 15th Amendment wasn't enough for them. They needed to also support the 19th Amendment. And so there are many who supported the suffrage movement, but there was also, well, a breakdown because of the prejudices that were already there. The 19th Amendment was a decisive victory for voting rights and progress. However, the women's suffrage movement that pushed for its passage also harbored division over the question of suffrage for Black people that undermined the amendment's impact and its legacy. And I find, when I read that, I go back to the laws for housing and this law that's for everyone but. And I go back to that poster, and it's, if we're supporting everyone, we're helping everyone. If we stop looking at the smaller groups, this problem would all be solved. Clearly that's not happening, but it was back in the 1920s, and looking at racism then and how it affected the suffrage movement, you're absolutely right, Wynn, that it didn't benefit everyone. It benefited white middle class women and not necessarily women of color. And the obstacles then were voter intimidation, voter suppression, tactics, denial of citizenship based on ancestry, and racial discrimination. And so I looked at those obstacles, and again, this is from the 1920s, and looking at that list of obstacles, I found some of them are not necessarily pertinent today, but some of them are.
That's interesting that you said that list was from 1920 because I thought it was today.
Uh-huh.
But
1920.
wow.
Right. Isn't that discouraging?
Yes. But you know what it makes me think of too, though, is I think it feels like we've always had the tendency to want to stay in your own lane, for a lack of a better term, because I think it just, all of this conversation makes me think about why it's so important that we continue to have this breaking bread, but also exploring these particular issues, because I've heard so many people say, you know, why is MANA doing this? MANA's supposed to give food, just stick to giving out food. And it's clearly that's not the only thing that we should be doing. Obviously, you know, in order to be beneficial to our community, we need to make sure that we're benefiting the community and making sure that everyone in the community, that again, that common good, you know, is lifted. And even to what Wynn was saying, I think MANA is the perfect place for people who traditionally have not been able to vote or have not known that they are eligible to vote or entitled to vote. These are the same people that MANA serves. So who better to help share that message that, yes, you have the opportunity. We're not going to have voter intimidation or any of these other kinds of expressions, and that education piece. So this is, it's kind of mind blowing. I don't know. I don't really have a comment.
I think I agree with everything you've said. And I think that two of the things that I go back to, one is that the suffrage movement came at their problem from many different directions. Some of them were militant, some of them were political, some of them, they came at it from different directions for the same purpose. And I would contest that MANA is one of those prongs, and that our purpose in encouraging people to vote and in educating people in how in the process of voting, not what party to vote for, not what person to vote for, but that they have that right to vote and that they should exercise that right to vote is one of those prongs that moves us all forward. And we don't have to be that militant group, and we don't have to be even, you know, politically pushing. We can be that grassroots back working with the participants in moving our communities forward. So that brings us to the end. Yeah. No. Sorry, give me one moment. Yes, that brings us to the end. And at this point, I would say, what are the obstacles? You know, I'm not sure that we need to compare anymore with what it was in 1920, but what do we really have? And we've addressed some of it already, but what do we need to, what are the obstacles that we need to address now? And I would contest that it is education and some of the more practical obstacles, like I can't get to a voting poll. I work 2 or 3 jobs. I don't have time for this. You know, those are some of the realistic obstacles that I think that our participants have. And certainly the pandemic has actually put people in a different situation in that we have the mail-in and early voting this time around. And I think it will be interesting to see what the outcome of that is and how that plays into the people in Montgomery County and in Maryland and really the country.
I think it's challenging because we do have the mail-in voting, but people are afraid to put their ballots in the mail because of what's happening with the Postal Service. I'm curious to know if anybody has observed any specific things that are happening locally that that relate to voter suppression. I just was looking at some things that relate to a place that I used to live, Albany, Georgia, and I had heard from one person that they had been in line for 6 hours waiting to vote. And then I got from another friend a video that was kind of a news story, a similar story about how long it was taking for people to vote because there weren't enough voting machines and there weren't enough staff at the polls. And they were connecting it to the Civil Rights Movement in Albany, Georgia, and you know, the steps that people took to get the right to vote then. And it just really touched me because the reason that I lived in Albany was to work for the Civil Rights Museum there. And, you know, just to think about the similarities between that time and seeing it play out today. And so it just, I don't know really what's happening locally. And I'm just wondering if anybody is seeing any things that are specific to the area in addition to the Postal Service and things like that.
I haven't heard of any problems with voting in Maryland. And I have to say, my husband and I got our mail-in ballots. We put them in the ballot box on what used to be known as Columbus Day here in our neighborhood. And we got an email. We each got an email, I think, like 4 days later saying that our ballots had been received. A friend of mine who lives part of the year in Europe sent us her and her husband's ballots in via DHL. We took them to the post office, mailed them, I think October 7th or 8th, and she just got her information that her ballot had been received. So those are my two personal experiences with mail-in ballots. At my church's racial justice task force meeting on Sunday, two participants were commenting on rumors that they had heard that mail-in ballots weren't going to work and that various other scared kind of things, none of which have we experienced. These women both live in DC, but the group is Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And so another person in the group felt very strongly that before anybody spread any rumors like that, they should definitely check with their Board of Elections and get the facts, because even lefty type leaning people spreading rumors is unhelpful. One of the women who does live in Maryland called me after that meeting because we're good buddies, and she had been shook up a little bit and lives in Greenbelt, wanted to know what to do, didn't want to send in her mail-in ballot because this fearmonger in the meeting. And I said, look, you can take your mail-in ballot. You want to do it in person, you take it to the Board of Elections in Prince George's County, you fill it out there, you hand it in, it's good as gold. And that's what I've been telling to people that I talk to in Pennsylvania. If you're at all nervous about mail-in ballots, fill it out, take it right to the Board of Elections, turn it in there, and you know that's a guarantee. I have not heard of any problems voting in Maryland. I've certainly heard of problems in other states, but not Maryland, for which I'm grateful to be living in Maryland.
That's great. That's good news.
In terms of just kind of being able to even get to the point to fill out your ballot and receive it, I think there has been some confusion for some people I've spoken to about, well, does everyone just receive a ballot and then you can fill it out and send it, or do you have to request it, or things like that? And so I know this may seem small, but I think it's really useful to um, take your network, such as your close family and friends, or anybody who you really have a good relationship with, to take that opportunity and help them out if needed. So I know for some people in my network, that might be like my parents or other people, to try to say, well, this is how we're going to request it based off of this piece of mail we got. So then we can, they can send us a ballot, we can fill it out and send it back. And even when it comes to just like maybe it's been a while since some of our friends or family has done a Scantron sheet. So even just being helpful and patient in providing instructions, or just any assistance with the process. So yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents about reaching out to your friends or family and seeing, or I guess just for future, it might be a little bit later now, but making sure that they're just educated and able to do and what they need to do, and if you can help in any way.
Thanks, Priya. You bring us to our final question, and it's not too late. There's still time to make a difference. So our final question that we ask at the end of every Breaking Bread is, what are you willing to do in the next month to create new solutions or explore the underlying causes of hunger and food insecurity in Montgomery County? And we can ask that in relation to our topic today. What are you willing to do in the next 2 weeks to make a difference in this topic? And I think we've all joined this call today because we are interested in this topic of voting and know how important it is. So I would just open the floor for anybody to share what you might do in the next 2 weeks to make a difference in this election. And we would be happy to witness your commitment.
Well, Andrea, with the Community Reach of Montgomery County. So in my professional job, we have been pushing voting for months and months and months, and we do it every year because we provide citizenship test preparedness classes in particular. This is a huge issue as far as we're concerned. The people who come to our citizenship classes spend a ton of money, which is going up now, and really, really study hard to have that right to vote. And so, for somebody to do that, and for somebody who's given that right as at birth, and to not do it just drives me crazy. But that's just my personal soapbox. So we put out that message. We put out as many messages as possible about how to vote and everything else. But in our personal networks, I think that we spend a lot of time, my friends and I, asking each other whether we're voting, whether we have voted, and if the answer is no, then chastising somebody, not, oh, you're a bad person, but definitely saying, letting them know that we think that they're not fulfilling their obligation to the community.
Thank you, Andrea.
I'm inspired by both the words of both Priya and Andrea about this topic. I attend a very diverse church as to people of ages, background, educational levels, and that it presents an opportunity for me as I'm interacting with those folks to ask them, do you have any questions? Are you worried at all? Do you understand what the process is? And then, not that I'm an expert on the process, although I do know some stuff, but not everything, but to help get them to the right people to help answer questions. If they're confused about, I keep getting all this stuff in the mail. Why haven't I received my ballot? How do I get put in my ballot? How do I secure a ride to a polling place if I've waited and I don't want to vote by mail. So I think just reaching out, as Priya and Andrea have suggested, to the groups that we're already well connected with to see how we could help is what I intend to do.
That's great, Beth. Thank you. And it's important to share with people the importance of taking actions and finding out what they need to do. And just hearing from us lets people know how important it is and may be just what they need to take that action or figure out what needs to happen.
I'm planning on doing some phone banking in the next couple of weeks. So if you don't feel comfortable calling to try and convince someone to vote for someone, a lot of the phone banking initiatives are just calling people to remind them to vote or to answer any voting questions. And it's proven like that phone banking can be just as effective as like knocking on people's doors. So I recommend that to anyone who's interested in getting involved.
Thanks, Lynn. Texting is also something that can be very effective. You probably have received a number of text messages. I've been receiving lots of text messages for various races. And so that's another way, if you're not comfortable having those conversations on the phone, you can do it via text.
I will say the Board of Election is also if you want to help. It used to be that it was an all-day thing from the time they opened until the time they closed, but there are positions that are just a regular 8-hour shift, if that makes a difference for you.
So I'm hoping we can hear from a few more people about the things that you might be willing to do in the next couple of weeks. Do you have a voting plan for yourself? Who might you reach out to in the next couple of weeks to talk about this issue?
You know, in this day and age of social media, I think it can be something even as simple as just posting on your whatever that you voted. And, you know, flooding, if enough of people are doing that, it's flooding that social media with something that just might, hit somebody just the right way.
I agree with Tracy with you a lot on that one. I think it also just serves as a reminder, just for people who mean to do something and just forgot. And so when you see something on social media, it's a great reminder.
I've already committed through the organization I'm volunteering with to 15 hours of phone banking between yesterday and November 3rd. And a lot of it will be get out the vote. It's not very hard compared to, past weeks when we were sometimes talking to Republicans or independents. This is pretty much straight shot. There are other opportunities that I'm looking into with respect to protecting the vote, trying to get training to be on the Pennsylvania voters hotline, which I may or may not manage to do.
Thank you. All right, well, we are coming to the end of our session. I want to thank you, Tracy, so much for putting together this presentation and walking us through this discussion today. I found it to be really valuable, and I think others do as well from the comments that we're hearing. So we really appreciate it. And I want to just remind everybody that We gather together every month on the third Wednesday. We've been meeting at noon for these last 4 months, and we'll continue to do that since it seems to be working out well. So we invite you to come back and join us again next month or in a future month if that works for you. So I guess we'll say goodbye for now, but as we are leaving, Tracy has well, I don't know, Tracy, do we have enough time to play us out with a song?
Well, I can play it out and people can leave as they
You can
want.
start it, yes. So Tracy's gonna share some music from Hamilton with us that speaks to this issue. And thanks everybody for joining us. You can hang around and hear the whole song or just hear a little bit as you go back to your day.
Maybe. There we go. And thank you all for your patience. That was my first Zoom presentation. I don't like it.
We couldn't tell, you did well.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Just so everyone can help fulfill the founding fathers' vision. If people don't take part in the decision,
who could envision 4 years ago those who sat outnumbered 100 million, a third were willing to choose a direction, and 80,000 states was all it took to win the whole election.
Then the midterms came, and it was they might win.
Business at home, the land trip is be educated. Is with the public the biggest
Tracy, it's not coming through as clearly as we would like because we want to get into the music. So tell us how to Google it so we can listen on our own.
I am sorry about that. Let's see here. There you go. That would be the address. Does that help?
It does, yes. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You are
everybody.
Absolutely welcome. Thank you all.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye for now and hope to see everybody next month, November 18th. Take care. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, Tracy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.